Bored of standing in place and watching the television in a shop window, I pull myself away from the tacky display with little effort. Oh, I will not be lured in by their vile advances. After living at Yamaku, the city seems like an entirely different world. No running in the halls. Calm and orderly conduct is to be used at all times in the classrooms. Students are to exit rooms after checking both directions for non-comers. Elevators are reserved for movement-impaired students. Single file on stairs. Compared to such strict, almost regimental standards, the city's shopping arcade might as well be a strange country. While school may have its fair share of hustle and bustle during the festival, the outside world is much different. It's strange. Having lived in a metropolitan city before my accident, this should feel more natural than Yamaku and the surrounding town ever could. Yet it feels foreign somehow. The elevated walkways and tall buildings, each adorned with billboards taller than any three people, don't do anything to distract me from the passing crowd's reactions. I don't know if I ever actually commented on her casual outfit in the last time we got to see it in Hanako's route. And I guess also in Shizune's. Either way, I think it looks really nice on her. Lily keeps one hand on my shoulder, the other holding her cane, which taps the ground with a metronome-like steadiness. Looking over to her, that neutral smile of hers still holds. Having only seen her in school uniform, I not have recognized her as she sat on a bench waiting for me to come, if never a cane propped up against it and her distinctive hair. Mostly the hair! I can't tell whether they're glancing at her due to her height, her foreign looks, her obvious blindness, or all three. Either way, she's completely unaware of any of those things, so that's gotta be pretty dope. Not that any of those would make the situation any less uncomfortable than it is. Do you have any idea of where to look first, Asao? Her soft voice breaks me out of my line of thought. I spend a lot of time thinking about Lily these days, it seems. Can't imagine that she's failing to notice the attention she garners, but she seems unfazed by it. I get the feeling she's the type to enjoy walking outside, so she might be used to it by now. Not really. This is my first time in the city, so I've got no idea of where to go. She furrows her brow in thought, planning a route for us to take, and, come to think of it, a way to communicate it. Something I'd noticed in the time I'd been with her is how, when deep in thought, she lacks close to any form of body language to show it. Her expression may change, but not a hint of movement shows. She seems to have little in a way of sweeping physical gestures in general, though, so I've assumed it's part of her reserved nature. Is there a large electronics store near here? I took a quick look around, mostly finding clothing stores. After a few seconds, I noticed a store with a bright blue sign some distance away that fits her description. Yeah, it's just a bit ahead. Should we go in that direction? Thankfully, it's just the information she needed. With a nod, we start off and head towards Lily's unknown destination. Landmarks being our guide. Here we go. 1 vanilla and 1 chocolate. Choose wisely, Hasao. I hand the money over to the counter and take the cones to the railing that Lily's sitting on. Can't believe I let her trick me like this. She not only led me to an ice cream stall, but also got me to buy her some. At least she gave me the money for hers. So then it's not much of a trick, now is it? Sure enough, in fact, one might even call it quasically a date. Sure enough, she's patiently waiting where I'd left her. I guess she was planning on making the day an event rather than a simple shopping trip. She is happy! I call out to her and slowly place the vanilla cone in her outstretched hands, being careful to make sure she has good hold of it before letting go. She likes vanilla. I like vanilla. Lily, you are a good. Ah! At least her tastes are fairly normal. I was worried she'd ask for some weird flavor when she first asked. Here's the change. It's okay, keep it. I moved to protest, but realized the futility of doing so over such a small amount. I slipped the coin into my pocket, supplementing my meager allowance ever so slightly. Lily shows no sign of wanting to get up, so I take a seat beside her and start eating my own ice cream. The summer weather's nice. Hopefully it'll hold out for a while. You too? I'm beginning to think I'm the only person who prefers winter. Ha-ha! I also prefer winter! I contemplate her statement for a long moment. Yeah, I think you might be. It draws the intended reaction. She's cute when she's pouting. Still, I can't really imagine what's so good about winter. You can't go without bundling up, and you still freeze anyway, but the cold feels nice. I used to live further north, where there'd been plenty of snow to play in, so it's a little nostalgic. I don't like the heat very much either. I'm always overheating, yo. Do you have any idea how much I want to wear hats? I can't wear hats, it just overheats my head. At least you can wear a skirt, so don't complain about that. That's good ventilation, it's true. Well, to be fair, men can wear those too. It's just technically not... I think it's societally acceptable these days. I don't know. Point is, you're gonna get people who are jerks about it. It's not my style, but if it's your style, rock on, I say. Plus, you know, Lily's from Scotland. Kilts. There you go. It all comes back together. She gives an amused giggle as we both get back to finishing off our already melting cones.
I hope they're waffle cones.
I idly sit and watch the crowds going by as we eat, catching bits and pieces of conversation. Looking to Lily, I see her dutifully licking her ice cream from the top downwards, blissfully unaware of the fact that it's beginning to melt. It's melting. Where? Down a bit? She lowers her mouth from the top of the cone, but has no idea of exactly where the ice cream's dripping, but follows the game of guiding her left and right until she finally finds it. To the onlooker, it must seem absolutely bizarre. A girl with her eyes closed, turning her cone over and over as the guy next to her giving instructions. A strange variant of childhood blindfold games, maybe. In good time, we finally finish our treats, and while away the time, conversing casually. Caught mid-sentence, Lee perks her head in her trademark manner. It's an unmistakable sign that something's caught her attention. Ah, what is it? Is Akira somewhere over there? I think I heard her. Did you? I raise an eyebrow as I look in the direction she's facing, somewhat doubtful of her ability to pick out Akira's lone voice in the din. Sure enough, dear God, there's somebody who doesn't look like TV static in the horizon. And I don't know any other blonde people. Well, I guess Emmy is also blonde. Weird they don't ever bring that up. Huh. Either way, sure enough though, a blonde girl in a suit can be seen through the tiny gaps between people walking every which way. I raise a hand and wave, trying to catch her attention. Satao! Hey, Satao! She stops in her tracks and looks towards me, evidently noticing my calls. As she does, I notice someone walking beside her. I can't get a good look at whoever it is, though, before the two begin walking towards where we are. I don't think they get a sprite. As they reach us, Lily and I stand and dust ourselves off. Akira? Hey, you two! Oh. Okay, well, I do know who that is. She nods towards me, a gesture which I quickly return. My gaze shifts towards the young girl next to her, and our eyes meet. We know better. As they do, Akira plops a hand onto her head, a move which doesn't seem to faze her. I don't believe we've met. I'm Hideki. Hidaki? I don't know. Pleased to meet you, Hasao. A guy's name, huh? Guess I dodged a bullet there. He bows, somewhat restrained by Akira's hand being on his head. Oh, Hideki's here too? Are you well? Akira's been taking very good care of me, thank you. Akira grins as if to affirm the point and rubs his head hard, dragging it around in a circular motion. His dreary face during this is somewhat amusing. Uncle's out on business again, so I'm taking him around town for today. I'd have preferred to be spending the day on a date with my boyfriend, but... Hideki gives a cough to try and redirect Akira's thoughts. As he does so, though, I find mine wandering. They're related? And further, as first cousins? I suppose that explains why she's taking care of him in any case. Come to think of it, Hideki, how did you know my name? Akira told me. Being a Yamaku student, I suppose you're disabled in some way? Very to the point, aren't you? Not everyone in Yamaku's disabled, which I only learned a handful of days ago. I give silent thanks to Shizune and Misha for their stream of information about how the school works. Because of them, I found out that since the school accepts practically anybody suffering from non-mental disabilities, it doesn't discriminate against healthy people either. It seems unlikely that many in good health would enroll there, though. While the standard of education is pretty high, it's extremely isolated and very much focused on helping disabled students. You're dodging the question. Damn, he's sharp. Before I could say another word, though, he decides to take a stab at it himself. If I were to call it myself... Your heart? Akira looks mildly curiously at me, her interest piqued as well. That sure was a lucky guess. How did you... You show no missing limbs or deformities, so external disabilities are out. Considering the lack of any strange mannerisms, it's also unlikely that you'd have any mental disability. But Yamaku doesn't take mentally disabled students. I know. Leaving that aside, the only possibility left is that of internal disabilities. I didn't know which one you might bear, so I guessed. Correctly, as it turns out, and your reaction confirmed my guess. Dang, aren't you all razor sharp today? More than a little bemused, I look to Akira. She grins and shrugs, obviously taking some enjoyment out of her partner's deductions. He's sharp, yes, but more than a little unsympathetic. Logical, but lacking in tact. His attitude reminds me of Shizune in a way. As do his looks. May I ask why you're staring at me? Surely I'm not that unusual a specimen. Does he not know how unusual he looks? I could overlook the spats and clothing as just being coincidental, but the ribbon in his hair really is too much. People can look how they want to look, man. This is entirely beside the point, though. Sorry, you just remind me of someone. Akira gives him a sharp jab with her elbow. Told you you're not that much different from her. He coughs into his hand to try and maintain an upright and serious demeanor. I see you've met my sister, then. perhaps my full name might help you. I'm Hideki Hakamichi. You're probably thinking of my sister, Shizune Hakamichi. Oh, so he's Shizune's brother. And the revelation that Lily and Shizune are cousins in 3, 2, 1. Wait a minute! If Hideki is the son of Akira's uncle and Shizune is his sister, that means Lily and Shizune's fathers are brothers-in-law. Therefore, Lily and Shizune are first cousins? Lily groans in an uncharacteristically unrestrained manner. The reaction earns an amused smirk from her sister. The enmity between the two just took on another meaning. I had thought it's simply a matter of difficulty of communication between the two, but a family feud makes things much more complicated. Okay, so I don't want to be a huge butt about this, but I personally feel that the weakest part of Shizune's entire story was the middle portion where we bummed around her family house for so dang long. And I feel like the fact that I, now that I'm on Lily's, path, and not only did I, basically meet Shizune's brother again, but he seems like a more three-dimensional and interesting person, and I learned the exact nature of their relation, of Lily and Shizune's, familiar relations so much more quickly and concisely. It's really just kind of giving me the impression that Shizune's story definitely needed another draft. I liked the beginning and I liked the end a lot. It's just the middle part that I felt was kind of draggy, as it were. I won't try to dwell on it. I don't want to make it sound like I thought it was a bad story, because I don't. It's just, I don't know. It just felt like it could have used a little bit of trimming. That's all. That's all. You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. She gives a half-hearted shrug. She mustn't give as much weight to the two's conflict as I do. Well, that's how it is. What are you two up to anyway on this fine day? We're shopping for Hanako's birthday present. The day will be coming up soon, so this is the last chance we'll have before school starts again for the week. And Kira makes a strange face as if Lily had just said the sky wasn't blue and the clouds not white. Although, I mean, admittedly, for Lily, she doesn't know what those are. Isn't her birthday on the 10th next month? Yes. Why? Is something wrong? Akira's face seems to collapse. It's an utterly unbefitting expression for someone so rowdy and headstrong. The folks didn't call you yet? Oh, right, the having to go away thing. I was beginning to wonder if that was even going to play a factor. As Lily shakes her head cluelessly, I look at Hideki to see if he knows anything about this. A simple shrug is his only answer. For a moment, Akira ponders what to do before smiling once again. The fact that she can hide her emotions so quickly and effectively is unsettling. Hey, Shorty, sorry, but could you hang with us out for a while? Oh, cool. He nods and waves her off, Akira placing an arm on Lily's shoulder as she guides her away and out of earshot. And so I'm alone with Shorty. Nice weather, ain't it? It seems so. I guess they dumped us. Indeed. What a farcical attempt at small talk! I've got no idea of how to talk to this guy, and his robotic responses aren't helping. Blood and stone come to mind. Without another word, he begins to rock on his feet in an obvious gesture of boredom with this discussion. He really is like a little kid despite his serious demeanor. Suspecting the conversation over, I decide to accomplish what I came here to do in the first place. I'm gonna go search for a present. Coming? Not much else to do. In a little while, we come to a small shop besides a convenience store. For once, the store windows aren't filled with electronics and computer games, but dolls, stuffed bears, and all manner of wood-crafted oddities. Othello's Antiques? An antique store? Well, if there's anything in this town that'd suit Hanako, I guess it'd be here. I reach for the old-looking door handle, but pull back at the last minute as I realize my companion's gone adrift. Not coming in? Yeah, I'll just be in the newsstand for a while. Don't mind me. His voice makes it painfully clear he has zero interest in what's at the store, and that he doesn't feel obligated to follow me. As he wanders off without another word, I push the thick wooden door and into the store, a bell above me ringing out with a ting-ting-ting-ting. The musty smell of old books and wooden shelves is distinctively anachronistic. I know some words. I look to the counter beside the door. The graying man behind it sits there silently, reading a tattered book. Certainly fits the look of the place. Slowly wandering through the aisles, the person I'm reminded of as I inspect each handcrafted or imported oddity in turn isn't Hanako. Crouching down, I examine the ancient oak desk inside the shop window. At least 30 dolls, all varying widely in size and make. The only similarity between them is the long Victorian dresses they wear. I turn the price tag of one of them to looks to be about waist height. It's not in my price bracket at all. I do the same to each of them, getting more and more depressed as they get smaller and smaller in size. That is until I reach the very smallest one. It's affordable, just, yet of quality makes, and with long auburn hair and a little blue dress. I decided that's the kind of present Hanako would appreciate. Pretty looking and far from gaudy. After I carefully pick it up, I decide to keep looking around the store. I'm not sure whether it's because I like the atmosphere or out of simple curiosity. Peeking around the corner before I go to the next aisle, I see that the shelves in this one are stocked with wooden toys, from toy cars to intricate automations. Tucked behind a line of nutcrackers, I notice a little plain wooden box. Feels surprisingly light as I pick it up with my free hand. The lid only needs the smallest movement to pop open. The little metal drum inside begins to rotate immediately. I love music boxes. There's something about their sounds that's so quasically melancholic, but at the same time beautiful, you know? You can thank Chrono Sugar for that. For seconds on end, I simply stand there listening to the palm-sized melody. As it plays, I take the tiny price tag in my fingers and bring it up to my face. The minuscule cursive writing taking some effort to read. It's affordable. Sort of. Grimacing slightly, I close the lid and make my way to the counter with doll and music box in hand. When I lay the two on the counter, the man beside it sits up and takes stock of them. Doesn't hide very well his surprise at someone of my age buying them. It's painful, but I hand over the money for the two and leave the store with a small, opaque bag in hand. The Deki meeting being there takes me by surprise. Oh, hi. I thought you'd be at the newsstand. Akira gave me a call. She's waiting for us at the fountain with Lily. At least that solves the issue of trying to find them again. I was curious about that part. We head off back to the fountain. Hideki's immaculate posture and presentation, despite his appearance, makes for a strange contrast even as we walk. Lily and Akira stand there waiting for us, their faces hard to read. Hey, you ready to go, shorty? Hideki's mood seems to improve as he rejoins her, likely due to the fact that they know each other better. See you, Lily, Masao. Tell Hanako I said happy birthday. We will. Bye. Goodbye, Akira. And the other one. And with that, the two disappear into the fracas of the afternoon city crowd. Turning to Lily, I notice she's carrying a small bag. It's now that I realize why her disposition felt differently from before. Lily's typically the type to wear her emotions on her sleeve as I hiccup, my goodness. Her expression and tone are clouded and difficult to read. It's more than a little off-putting, but given the effort she's making to hide her emotions, I doubt she wants to be cornered on why she's feeling this way. And as I would like to be something of a good friend to her, I'm definitely not about to pry. Already bought Hanako a present? Yes, have you? Yeah. Shall we head back to the bus stop then? It's interesting that we got different ones though. I mean, it makes sense. We're not as super close with Hanako, so we didn't really get like a super duper in detailed gift, but it's still a very nice gift all the same. Okay, should be a bus back to Yamaku pretty soon. And with that, we begin to walk. It feels strange compared to before. Lily's hand on my forearm feels unusually tense, and the whole atmosphere is extraordinarily weird. The silence continues for a long while. I really don't like seeing her like this. I like it when she smiles much better. Hanako's birthday party is going to have to be held earlier. Is the 4th going to be all right for you? I have no other possible obligations anyway, so I reflexively nod. Only afterwards do I remember that doing so is completely pointless, and quickly answer so by speech. So she tries to collect herself, a task that looks almost pitiable in how plain it is to see how distant her thoughts are. Sorry, Sawa. You said the bus would be coming soon, right? That's right. But now that she says that, I have an idea. Actually, do you have anything to do later today? I don't believe so. Why do you ask? This is the point where I'd normally take your hand and rush you somewhere, but even without that, you'll have to trust me, okay? I take her hand and gently lead her on, her distant face replaced by one of mild surprise and curiosity. As the waitress sets the cup of tea and coffee that I order onto the table, I thank her before she takes her leave. Dang, Sal, that's actually surprisingly smooth. Truth be told, I really lucked out in finding this cafe. I didn't really know where I was going. Rather, I was just looking for any cafe that looked relatively nice. Having managed to recover a little, Lily tentatively sips at her cup as I take a long gulp of the coffee in front of me. As I hoped, her face lights up as she realizes what flavor it is. Oh, this is wonderful. Sal, how did you know that this was... I'd asked for French vanilla black tea, hedging my bets that it would be her favorite flavor, or at least one that she liked. While I don't really know much about tea, it sounded like one she might appreciate. On the basis of her liking vanilla ice cream, a tea connoisseur I am definitely not. Still, not a bad guess. Dang, taking her preferred flavor of ice cream and trying to translate it into her favorite type of tea. That's Clever! Clever, clever! I gotta respect it. It was a lucky guess. You really like tea, don't you? She puts her teacup down and gives a tiny nod. That familiar small smile thankfully perched on her face once again. Drinking tea is calming, I think. With the amount you drink, are you sure you're not addicted to it? Caffeine addiction's pretty common nowadays. Does tea have caffeine in it? Did I ever say I wasn't? She lets out a giggle as my head drops. We all have our vices, I suppose, and there are worse things to be addicted to. Woohoo, yeah. French vanilla black tea, huh? I'll have to remember that. For a while, we both silently drink. It's comforting to have someone like her nearby in such new surroundings, even if it's just the two of us sitting in silence. I begin to wonder if this feeling is the same for her until she sets down her cup. Sal, do you mind if I ask you a slightly odd question? Well, that depends on the question, I guess. I was wondering what your favorite color is. Everyone has one, after all. I almost reply before realizing why the seemingly mundane question is actually quite strange. My favorite color? But she gives a pouting look, wanting me to answer anyway. While the answer seems unavoidably wasted on her, there isn't any harm in giving it. I've always had a thing for green. I'd say that's my favorite. For some reason, that's the color I would have guessed. Huh, for him. Green, is it? What things do you think of when contemplating that color? I suppose grass fields and trees in summer. The army as well, with camouflage. Men always seem to like the military. Not me. But that sounds like a nice color. A very nice color. She nods her head a little as if approving of the choice. Considering how foreign the concept of color is to her mind, labeling it by association seems reasonable enough. I've heard that a good way of being able to sort of tell the blind how a color might conceivably work is if you get an object that can sort of make you think of that color. Like, hand a blind person, maybe not necessarily a hot object, but a pretty warm one, and you can tell them that the feeling of this should invoke red. And, hand them an ice cube and go, that's kind of blue. Some leaves and you get green, that sort of thing, I'm not sure how well it really works. I've never known a blind person myself, but I always felt like that might work out a little. She nods her head a little as if approving the choice, considering how foreign the concept of color is to her mind. Labeling it by association seems reasonable enough. If everyone has a favorite color, then what's yours? White. I'm told that's the color of snow and of ice cream. I have a fondness for the color too. Better than me then, if you only like that color because of a favorite food. I guess white is nice too, though. Bianca. Blanc. Schnee. And speaking of colors, it'll be getting dark soon. Let me help you out. Lily offers her hand, which I take in mind to help lever her up from a seat at the table. Its softness compared to mine takes me off guard, as I'm really not used to such casual contact.
Especially not with pretty girl, oh my.
It doesn't seem to bother her at all, though. Well, it seems obvious why. It feels like just one more ladylike aspect to her. As her hand moves to her pocket, I quickly cut her off. Don't worry, I'll pay for this. Oh, thank you, Asao. She gives an earnest smile at the gesture, a reward much greater than that of her words.
It do be a pretty smile, though.
By the time we step off the bus, it's well and truly dark. We make our way up the hill in silence, both of us behaving a little awkwardly, probably because of the day's events. While I'm still concerned over Lily's withdrawn nature after meeting with her sister, the fact that I managed to cheer her up even slightly feels like a personal victory. But it feels like the air between us has changed. Maybe it's only a bit, but it's something I don't think either of us have realized before. That was a date, wasn't it? It was. That doesn't elude either of us. The question answers being so self-evident as to be rhetorical. Awkward as it may be, I don't think this feeling is bad. In fact, quite the opposite. I don't know what it is, I certainly can't be sure, but feels like something a little more than friendship, as I awkwardly spin my ponytail in my finger. Understanding? Empathy? Searching for words to adequately describe it is difficult, nonetheless. Would you like to do this again sometime, Lily? Without shopping for presents? The tentative question is met with the same look from Lily as before. Her pale skin makes the rosy tint of her cheeks just slightly more noticeable, and her face, though still pointed to the street ahead of her, lowers just a little. Okay. Well, that was casually beautiful. I really liked that. Aw, cute. So simple and yet so cute. Ah. I walked down the hall of the girls' dormitory, my school bag in hand. A doll lies inside, carefully placed on top of a small box. I've been carrying the box in there for a while now, still not sure of what to do with it. The whole situation, come to think of it, it is bizarre. Well, I've known Hanako's upcoming birthday party for a while now. I had no idea of exactly what the celebrations would be until I found a single note left in the abandoned tea room earlier today. I hold it up and read it again, double-checking the instructions. The plain black handwriting fairly legible despite Lily's blindness, clearly thanks to considerable effort and care. Dang, it's almost like it's in typeface. We'll be holding a party at my place. Please come at 6 o'clock to room 225 in the girls' dormitory. Sorry for notifying you this way, but I have class representative duties. Not reassured, I continue walking down the hallway until I reach Lily's dormitory room. I hesitate for a second, but eventually give 3 sharp taps on the door. A brief and muffled exchange of words can be heard from the other side. Listening closer, I can just pick out Hanako and Lily's voices. As they finish, Lily calls out, "Might that be Hisao?" "Yep, I got the note you left for me. You can come in. The door is unlocked." Glad that I managed to get the right room, I press down on the handle and let myself in. As the door swings open, my greeting to them is stolen from my mouth. They do be mad pretty. Like, let's not even try and pretend that these gals ain't incredibly pretty. Lily sits at a low table in the center of the room in her pajamas, while on the other side sits Hanako in a nightgown. Being dressed in only my normal school clothes, I feel quite out of place. I steal a quick glance at the lovely side of the two, my eyes tearing themselves from, or tearing? I'm not even sure. But the point is, Lily's long, thin, and pale legs with only a measure of reluctance. Yeah, tearing is the word. There it is. Hi, I think I brought everything that was needed. She smiles and nods. I wonder if she's even aware of the pleasant sight she makes. The thin, dark blue silk of her pajamas really suits her, accentuating both her eyes and her curves. The look of her last night, the tentative and almost shy demeanor seems all but replaced by her coy nature. It's nice to see her confidence returned, though I can't help casting my mind back to how she looked back then. I look to Hanako, who nervously sits opposite her in her gown. I'm just surprised that she'd wear something so conservative, though it definitely looks cute. Hi, Hanako. Happy birthday. Thank you. She's unusually skittish despite the fact that she's warmed up to me considerably over the weeks we've come to know each other. This is a pretty unusual situation, I guess. Also, we don't know everything there is to know about Hanako's birthday situation, but I assume it's still in play here. Feel free to take a seat, Hisao. I'll pour you two some tea. Sure thing. Lily takes the steaming red teapot from the side of the table and gently pours its contents into our teacups as I take a seat beside them, setting my bag against the nearby wall. With my senses returned and hormones somewhat calmer, only slightly, I realize that this is the first time I've ever been in Lily's room. The first thing I notice is the ambient smell, just slightly different from that in mine. Probably faint perfume or nail polish. Could be anything of a girl's, really. Another is the plain nature of the room visually. Beige walls, a smart yet adorned cabinet, the lack of posters or wall hangings. It's distinctly utilitarian. Something I should have anticipated given her blindness. Not much of a real reason for decorum when you can't actually, enjoy it in any capacity. The only thing that really seems out of the ordinary is several piles of books sitting on the floor, each reaching from roughly knee-height to waist-high. Some of them have printed titles, others are entirely blank except for dots of braille. The fact that ones with printed text titles are uniformly in English is interesting, though not completely unexpected. She did mention her parents impressing the language upon her and Akira, after all. Your room looks nice, Lily. I hear a call of thanks from beside my shoulder. Looking back to Hanako, her gaze is fixed on her lap and her hands are nervously clutching her gown. It's now that I notice why. With these clothes on, the extent of her scarring is far more visible, reaching down her neck and onto the cover of her right shoulder. Considering this is a party for her, she doesn't really look like she's enjoying the experience now that I'm here. So, how old are you turning? 18? Her look of surprise, not at all helped by her total lack of skill at hiding her feelings, shows that she was trying to mentally tune me out. This is really quite awkward. Yes. On the plus side, there's only 2 more years till you can drink. So, who's older? You or Lily? Lily. She had her birthday in February. She was born in February, too?! Man, I have a lot in common with Lily. Wow, okay. It's now an interesting time to point out that I have Scottish ancestry. Anyway, what about yours? Early this year, so it's already passed. Unstated is that it passed while I was stuck in the hospital. That was a particularly low point of the experience. Conversation with her dries up as quickly as expected. It isn't long before Lily finished preparing our drink, setting down the 3 teacups in front of us. I pick mine up, immediately noticing a much stronger aroma and taste than the tea we've been having. Tastes different than the tea we have in school. It's a different variety, rather than the kind we've been having there. You've never tasted orange japur before? Not that I can remember. I usually drink coffee, after all, like when we were in town. This is nice, though. As we settle down and sip, Hanako seems to become more relaxed, or at least a bit less tense about my presence. I mean, we're still technically friends, I like to think. We finish our cups at about the same time, with Hanako failing rather badly at hiding her anticipation for the cake that's sitting to the side, begging to be eaten. Come to think of it, I'm feeling very eager myself. First things first, though. Lily? Yes, that was good. Each of us knowing exactly what the other means, I lean sideways and dig around in my bag for the doll I bought Hanako, and as Lily gets up and retrieves her gift. Having our gifts in our hands, we present them both on the table at the same time. Happy birthday! Hanako silently sits looking at them for seconds on end, out of sheer surprise. My little wooden doll, replete with Victorian-era dress and little hat, lies next to a light brown and fluffy stuffed bear from Lily. She clutches at her gown as she moves to speak, not taking her eyes off the modest presents. Thank you, Lily and Hisao. I see that blush. Aww, hugs! Her voice begins to crack as Lily reaches forward, wrapping her in a soft embrace. The sight of Hanako holding Lily so tightly is heartwarming. So much so that I couldn't wipe the smile off my face even if I wanted to. As Lily gently rests her face on Hanako's head, she speaks so quietly and softly that I can barely hear. Happy birthday, Hanako. Happy birthday. Hanako gives a small nod, holding on to Lily for a time before breaking off and wiping an eye. I guess that for Hanako, simply having anyone to be there and love her would be special. The fact that Lily and I can now share that role for her is something that I will always be grateful for. Hanako gently takes the doll and teddy bear, holding them both to her chest as she warmly smiles. For a long time, all 3 of us simply sit in happy silence. The quiet is not broken until Lily's soft voice beckons. Shall we have the cake then? Her proposal is met with 2 looks of unhidden anticipation. No argument from me. Okay. Whew, that was good. I contentedly sit back, both Lily and Hanako looking just as satisfied with the food as I. It took some effort, but we managed to finish off the cake in one go. I don't think I could fit any more in. I think next time I'll buy a smaller cake. Hanako and I give a chuckle, but I can't help noticing that come this time next year, we'll have graduated from Yamaku. The fact is somewhat depressing since I finally feel as if life is starting to get back into some kind of order. Idly looking around Lily's neat and orderly room, her books catch my eye once again. This may be a little impetuous, but impetuous, maybe? But my curiosity gets the better of me. Besides, I don't think she'll mind in any case. Hey, Lily, do you mind if I take a look at one of your books? You're quite welcome to, Hisao. That said, if you can overcome 2 language barriers, I will be quite impressed. 2? Braille and... Oh, right, English. She gives a nod. I knew you were studying English, but I'm still amazed that you're this proficient at it. One could say it's a perfect way to avoid people borrowing my collection. She says it in jest, but I am a little disappointed. Having all these books around me with no way of reading them feels like one big tease. Hanako giggles quietly as I reach over the closest pile, plucking the topmost book with only a cursory glance. Death of the Nile in large letters on the cover is the only printed text to be seen. I sit down for a while and with the book open on my lap as Lily and Hanako talk. Try as I might to feel out the dots of braille printed on each page, they seem to blend into one another and become indistinct. I thought this would be a lot easier than it actually was. With some practice, though, I could see someone with a better sense of touch than mine managing to read at a pretty fast speed. Noticing a silence that had probably begun earlier, I looked up from the dotted pages to see Lily smiling as Hanako sips another cup of tea. Something wrong? Quite the opposite. Your curiosity's quite endearing. I'm inordinately pleased by the praise, though I can feel my cheeks heating up a little. Thanks, but I don't know how else I could act. To be honest, I wasn't altogether sure of how you saw us since you were a new transfer student from another school. If you'd pitied us, I would have been quite offended. There's a certain edge to Lily's voice, one that I'd quite possibly place as pride. Glancing over to Hanako, she seems even more subdued than usual, looking towards Lily rather than me. I wouldn't worry about that. Considering the position I found myself in, I'm perhaps the last person that should be dispensing pity on others. My parents' first interactions with me after my heart attack, I wouldn't want anyone to see that kind of face. I catch myself from going any further, but not soon enough. Both of the girls seem to be put off, Lily especially. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have gone that far. An awkward silence reigns for a few beats, thankfully ended as Lily's head perks up in a gesture I've come to easily recognize. Hear something? The door. As everyone looks towards it, trusting in Lily's senses, true enough, the door handle shudders and turns, a flash of yellow and black slipping through. It's Akira! Akira Satawa in the house! Happy birthday, Hanako! Thank you. Akira takes a seat at the table as she plops her tall bag beside her. She has her trademark boisterous air about her, making no small deal of her entrance. Hanako clutches her gown to steady herself, but doesn't appear too shaken after she settles down. I guess she must have met Akira before. Not a huge surprise, given how close Akira and Lily are. Akira doesn't seem to be the least bit put off by Hanako's scarring, despite its prominence, but she also doesn't pull any punches in how she acts, despite Hanako's shy nature. I thought you said you'd have work to do, Akira. Did you manage to get off for a while? Kinda. I feel bad about ditching the guys doing overtime, so I gotta get back soon. But I felt bad about not coming to your cute little Hanako's birthday too, so for now I'm here. She grins widely at Hanako, who flowers into a full blush as she pins her eyes downward towards her lap. Her mouth seems to widen and retract over and over as if she was trying to suppress a smile out of embarrassment. Cute! It's a little strange how her reaction seems to be more immediate and forceful than when she's embarrassed by the way she looks. All she managed to give in return is a tiny nod, failing to hide her appreciation to any great extent. Not that many people give her positive attention, I suppose. It makes me respect how well Akira can handle her, making her so happy compared to what little I could do. Now then, before I go, she reaches into the bag beside her and grandly displays its contents. The accursed alcohol has returned! Well, out comes 2 large glass bottles, both with long French names on the labels. Hanako's expression is an odd mix of surprise and curiosity, and I suspect mine's no different. Lily, not seeing the proceedings, is oblivious to what's going on. Akira, this isn't... What is it? Wine. 1 red, 1 white. Akira, that's... Relax. It's not like Shizune's here to scold ya. Well, he has a point. It's not exactly allowed on campus. Or anywhere, really. We're still short of the legal drinking age, remember? Rich words for someone practically drooling as he examines a bottle. And she got me there. I am genuinely interested in trying some, even just a little. While Hanako may not be handling one herself, her look does tell me that she's far from opposed to the notion as well. Lily rubs her forehead, giving up the fight that she knows Akira would win due to simply not caring enough about those funny rules and regulations. Just don't breathe a word of this to anyone in the school, please, I beg of you. I'm not stupid, don't worry. That said, I should get back to work pretty soon. So soon, but you only just arrived. Sorry, Lily. Good to see you two again, though. And you, Hisao. See you later, then. Goodbye, Akira. Akira busts down door, hands teenagers alcohol, leaves, refuses to elaborate further. Absolute boss. She levers herself up with a grunt and waltzes out the room, leaving us alone with the 2 items on the table. Well, now what the higgity-hick do we do? Interesting. Lily gives a nervous giggle at her sister's antics as Hanako takes a wine bottle. So, what do you think, Lily? She rests her elbow on the table and pinches the bridge of her nose. Thinking things through, she doesn't really seem to be able to keep up with her sister. Well, it's already here. We may as well have some. No sooner does she say it than I take a quick glance around the room for glasses. A small groan above me reminds me that Lily retired to rest on her bed for a bit a few minutes ago. Almost completely drained of energy, I managed to stand up and drag myself to the side of the bed, sitting down and leaning my back against it. Good God. Ugh. Lily's groan sounds lifeless. Too much to drink? My head hurts. Yeah, too much to drink. I rest my head back and idly stare at the ceiling with an unmitigated disaster. What an unmitigated disaster! Like proper idiots, we all drank the night away with 1 glass after another. Hanako simply fell to the side asleep. It's a miracle I don't feel as ill as Lily. Hey, Sal, I'm sorry about today. I didn't think this would happen. It's fine, Lily. To tell the truth, I had a lot of fun today. Really? I think Hanako did too. No, she certainly did. There's a short silence before another groan responds from the supine Lily. You okay? As you said, I drank too much. What's the time? The time? It's... I quickly look at my wristwatch. My wristwatch has numerals barely legible in the gloom. About midnight. curfew's in effect then. Escaping these lands are not going to be easy, but one I'm going to have to brave regardless. Yeah, guess as much. Well, I'll have to sleep here for tonight. As soon as I say it, I hear the sheets moving as Lily starts to sit up. Hanako. Ah, no, go back to sleep. Don't try to get up. Hisao, I have to. You're in worse shape than me by any stretch. Get some rest. But what about... I'll grab some spare blankets and put them over her. Don't worry. As I give a deep yawn and start to retrieve them, I hear her lie back down with a soft thud. I guess escape is not an option. Thank you, Hisao. No problem. It's the least I can do. You look outright wasted. I'm not wasted, just a little bit tired. She starts pouting, a slight slur beginning to distort her words. The alcohol takes hold of her again. I grab a couple of blankets rolled up at the end of her bed. Quietly walking over to Hanako. This is why I have no less than 5 blankets. You never know when you need more. Quietly walking over to Hanako, I carefully lay the blankets over her peacefully sleeping figure, making sure not to wake her up. The thick smell of alcohol coming off her breath makes me doubt she'd wake up no matter what I did, though. I stand to take one last measure of the room. 2 girls, both very drunk, and one guy sleeping overnight with them in the female student's dorm. What a scandal that'd be if it broke out. Lily, I don't suppose you've got, like, a closet or something? I could, like, sleep slumped in the corner of that. Assuming you don't, you might have important stuff in there. As I move to sit back down at the side of the bed, I steal one last glance at Lily. Her sprawling, disheveled figure lies resting peacefully, slightly turned to the side. I crouch down to get a better look. She do be mad pretty. Her white skin blends with the white pillow of the bed, a look of slumber-born peacefulness on her face. Granted, while it might be due to necessity so as to not get in trouble, the fact that I am trusted in this situation is deeply appreciated. Usually she seems so confident and forward, always there and caring for Hanako. Now, though, she seems painfully delicate. I think back to Hanako's presence. I thought it'd be a nice occasion for her, but I'd hardly expected it to be so moving. One birthday after another, year after year. Just she and Lily all alone. I guess it wasn't just the present she liked. Resigning myself to an uncomfortable sleep, I sit down at the side of the bed once again and rest my tired arms beside me. Hey, Hisao? Lily's voice is so quiet I can barely hear it. She must be on the verge of sleep. Yeah? Thank you. Thank you? For what? For being here. Well, that's okay. As I hear a deep breath, it's obvious Lily's gone to sleep. After closing my eyes, it doesn't take long for slumber to take me as well. Thank God nobody checks these rooms ahead of time. Hisao? Hisao, are you? The soft, barely audible voice lingering in my ears slowly wakes me. I wish I could be awoken like this more often. With a mumble, I slowly open my... Yeah! Whoa! Ah! Taken by surprise at the face hovering curious mere millimeters from mine, I make our heads collide with a harsh thud. The impact of our foreheads causes both of us to fall backwards and yelp in pain. Lily sounding more like a squeak toy than a person. Ow, 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 ow. I slowly rub my forehead with one hand, supporting myself with the other. Lily lies a few feet ahead, doing just the same, her face obviously pained. Sorry, your face was kind of closed and I acted on reflex. Are you okay? My head. Seems she's not actually okay. Come to think of it, I doubt the impact alone is what causing her head so much pain. Hangover? You drank a fair bit last night. She silently nods in confirmation as I lever myself up. Oh boy. I offer a hand to her and help her back onto her feet. Glancing behind her, I find that Hanako is still fast asleep. It's not fair. I only drank as much as you did. Don't you weigh, like, at the bare minimum, like, maybe 100 pounds less? That's very different from what I remember. And anyway, girls have a lower tolerance than men. That's not actually necessarily true. It's all based on height and weight. And even then, even no matter what, some people just take it better. I mean, I don't know. I've never had any, but that's what I've read and heard over the many years I've been alive. Many years. I'm almost 29. Come on now. That doesn't help. Fine, I'll get you a glass of water. Just be careful not to trip over Hanako. I rub the sleep out of my eyes, or at least some of it, as I walk to the counter. Tending to someone with a hangover isn't the way I like to spend my morning. It only takes a few seconds for the glass to fill, the clear water reflecting the silver of light that makes it through the thin curtains. Sliver of light. It looks like Lily's taking a seat on the side of the bed. I walk over to her while taking care to step over the peacefully sleeping Hanako and place the glass into her outstretched hands. Thank you. No problem. Take a seat next to her, the soft bed having a surprising amount of give. She drinks slowly and methodically, A long silence passes with only Hanako's soft breathing to be heard. With some measure of guilt, I look at Lily's face and attempt to read her expression. Her brow is furrowed, and she looks to be lost in thought. For a moment I hesitate, but eventually place a hand on her shoulder and attempt to reassure her. I didn't expect her to flinch rather noticeably at that, though. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Lily quickly shakes her head in a manner somewhat more violent than usual for her. She takes a long breath to steady herself before letting her head sink. I must look terrible right now. You'd have to try way harder than this to look terrible, Lily. I moved to protest, but quickly realized that it would be futile to do so. That said, I want her to open up more. If you want to talk about anything, I'm here. Lily gives a self-deprecating snort, as if to mock her own emotions. There's just a lot happening right now. I'm sorry for being so strange recently, especially back when we were in town. Even now, I'm a bit confused about everything. Believe me, I know how that feels. She smiles wistfully, resting a cheek on the back of her fingers. We're a couple of broken young fools, aren't we? Come now, don't say that. Come graduation, we'll be back into the real world. The real world. Sometimes I surprise myself with the way I think about things. I guess the strange, divorced feeling of Yamako and the surrounding town compared to the outside world still hasn't become natural. Maybe it never will. It's strange in hindsight. Being isolated from society like this doesn't feel as bad as it probably should. A wry grin on her face, Lily seems to share the same sense of amusement at the idea. Eventually, though, her smile drops. I'll be going back to Scotland for a week or two soon. Is that why you had to reschedule Hanako's birthday party? She gives an affirmative nod. You'll be able to see your family again, at least. You're not looking forward to it? I haven't met my family in 6 years. I don't even know how to act around them anymore. Wait, what? My mouth hangs open as I try to process what she said. If she's 18, that means she'd only been 12 when they left. I may see very little of my parents, what with them both working long hours, but that's... I feel utterly useless as I struggle to find some way to respond. But why? Why did they leave, or why are they inviting Akira and me back? Both, I suppose. My father's business has its headquarters in Scotland. An executive position became available for him there. In the end, he had to move permanently. My mother followed him, but Akira and I stayed in Japan for the sake of both Akira's job within the Japanese branch of my father's company and my education. As for the latter, one of my aunts is gravely sick. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't be. It feels strange, really. We're being summoned there for her, yet we've barely met before. I can't even remember the sound of her voice. This definitely puts the context I knew before in a different light. Wow. So that time when I was doing all that Hanako stuff, Lily was seeing her family again for the first time in 6 years. And she barely even knows the aunt that's sick, that is. Wow. Equally strange is the total lack of... antipathy? Antipathy? I mean, I would have thought that was apathy, but no. Weird. Antipathy. Anyway, she feels towards her family for doing such a thing. I can't help feeling slightly humbled. That said, her wistful exterior is just hiding her emotions. Seeing her like this is depressing. Knowing what to do, I lift myself off the bed. Lily notices the bed's movements, her head perking up and her hand reaching sideways to feel where I was. Sal? I walk over to my bag, still leaning against the wall. Unbuckling the front flap and retrieving the opaque bag from within, I take the small plain box in my hands. Hold out your hands, Lily. She looks surprised for a moment, but eventually acquiesces. The music box. I'm amused by her look of curiosity when I place the music box into her open palms. Her typically delicate way of handling it makes it seem as if it were fragile enough to break if breathed on. She wordlessly brings it in front of her face, her slender fingers feeling out its contours and patterning. Eventually, her fingers find the recessed line between the lid and the body of the box, and her thumb effortlessly pops open the lid. I take a seat on the bed next to her, watching her face silently and intently. She sits completely motionless as she listens to the diminutive, tinny melody, her mouth just slightly open. It takes a long while before she closes the lid with a small snap. I probably should have let that play a little longer. Oops. Bringing the curtain down on the miniature performance playing in her hands. I believe the implication is she listened to it for a good while and didn't just immediately snap it shut. The smile on her face, gentle and wistful, shows that I made the right decision. Think of it as a going-away present for your trip to Scotland. I will. A restless shuffling can be heard from the floor in front of us, the sound having woken Hanako. She climbs out of the blankets I put over her, looking befuddled and wiping the sleep from her eyes. I see you're finally up. Trying to cross the border, were you? What? Hanako looks around the room with her eyes it was a Skyrim thing, sorry. Her mind far from being as awake as her body. Her dazed state makes me and Lily chuckle. As Lily gets off the bed and tends to Hanako, I take one last look around the room. I guess I'd better get going then. There'll be questions if I'm seen leaving the girls' dormitories in the morning. Goodbye, Hisao. Oh, goodbye. I stand and walk to the door, picking up my somewhat lighter bag along the way. I don't know if he ever intended to give that as a gift to Lily, but if he did, dang. That was a really nice gift to give her, I gotta be honest with you. After I leave the room and enter the hallway, though, I hear Lily's footsteps behind me. Huh? What's wrong? Without a word, she strides up to me. I freeze as I feel her hand slide onto my cheek, seemingly every nerve taking in the feeling of her fingers and palm upon it. Immediately after, her face slowly moves to mine, a light momentary touch of her lips brushing against my other cheek. For a moment, everything seems to stand still. I absent-mindedly bring my fingers to my cheek as if to try and recapture that fleeting feeling. Lily. That's my thank you, Hisao. Thank you? For your present. Have a nice day in school. And with that, she disappears behind her door and gently closes it. The muffled voices of her and Hanako audible through it, much as they were yesterday night. And if there were any doubt whatsoever of developing a full-on crush of this girl, yeah, no, Hisao's got that 9 times over 10 by now, let me tell you. I think I'd be hard-pressed to not have a nice day after that. She already made it so incredibly hard to not fall for her, and then she had to just go and do something like that. I mean, even, those references to our outing being a date could have easily just been in jest. Just a ha-ha, hee-hee sort type situation, but not so much here. I mean, I don't know about her full intentions, but I don't know. Either way. Wow. I walk away with a certain spring to my step. I think there were some people around that glanced at me emerging from the girls' dormitory building, but I find it difficult to care. All in all, a pretty fantabulously wonderful day. Ha-ha. You know it's a good day when you say it's a good day and it's barely even started. Hee-chan, go away. Hee-chan, leave me alone. Come on, Hee-chan. Let me sleep. After 2 nights of not being able to sleep at all, the last thing I want is to be woken when I finally manage to. Maybe the last period of class with a textbook as my pillow, but I'll take whatever sleep I can get at this point. See, Hee-chan? Even Chi-chan wants you to get up. I don't care what Shizune wants. Leave me alone. Jeez, Hee-chan, I'll just have to wake. Wait, Misha's going to. You? This is bad. I'm up! You don't have to! I could feel my face flowering into a scarlet red blush. The students still in class are sitting bolt upright and staring at the shouting fool who was sleeping just moments before. Damn it. I let my head smack down on the table with a noticeable thud. Misa's trademarked uncontrolled laughter reverberates through the classroom. As I turn my mournful eyes to the bespectacled Shizune beside her, she carefully adjusts her glasses, desperately trying to maintain a look of serious disapproval. Narrowing my eyes, I can see the badly hidden grin spreading across her face. You too, Shizune. Shizune looks away quickly as she crosses her arms tightly, barely on the edge of her control. Misha's laughter doubles in volume as she glances at Shizune. All I can do is drag my hand down my face in resignation. You too. Who was the one who slept in class, Hee-chan? Yeah, it was me. Poor Shi-chan was having a fit trying to wake you up, weren't you? I move my eyes back to the standoffish Shizune, who was, with a single huff of confirmation, returns to looking away with her arms crossed. Why was Shizune trying to wake me up? Shi-chan wanted to give you the handouts the substitute teacher gave out while Hee-chan was sleeping. Handouts? I suddenly find 2 sheets of paper thrust down in front of my face. Following with a hand holding them, I see the still pouting figure looking down at me with a distinctive scowl. I guess I really am in the wrong here. So sorry about that. No dice. Her irritated face still holds. I clasp my hands together and flick my head downwards in apology. Very, very sorry. She huffs and simply drops the papers on the desk. Damn. I look over my hands to see Shizune and Misha signing frantically to each other, a look of frustration on Shizune's face. It looks to be less of a dialogue and more of a tirade, punctuated with sidelong glances at me. To say it's unsettling is an understatement. The two suddenly stop signing and look at me in unison, both having exactly the same look of disapproval. In one fluid motion, Misha's hand suddenly extends high above me and comes rocketing down. Before I could even hope to react, my head is set bouncing up and down like a jack-in-the-box. I quickly bring my hands to my head, more out of reflex than actual pain. Ah! What was that for? I opened my eyes to see the two grinning at each other while exchanging an enthusiastic thumbs up. Shi-chan says she forgives you now, He-chan. Could you forgive me with a little less force next time? I look at the two with a blank face. Misha and Shizune. 1, Hisao 0. Oh, Shi-chan also says that you should check your student mail more often. Egads, it's time for this. She produces a bright yellow envelope and hands it over with an exuberant grin. Strange. You could have written me a letter. No, it's not the time, and most definitely not the place to find out, though. Giving up on the nap so cruelly stolen from me, I rub my forehead and slowly get up, putting the sheets and envelope in my bag before swinging it over my shoulder. I take a step back and move to depart with a small bow, while Misha clutches her sides laughing and Shizune nods back in a curt farewell. I join the flow of students exiting the opening door and turn the corner into the hallway, only to end up face to face with Hanako. Whoa, hey, Hanako. Good afternoon, Hisao. Silence falls between us as busily chatting students pass us by. She's fidgeting constantly, her eyes drawn to her rather unremarkable footwear. I take the bridge of my nose and my fingers while I blink my eyes heavily in an attempt to make things seem clearer. I'm barely staying awake as it is. Hanako, you want to say something? What is it? I wanted to give you this. Huh? She holds out a small rectangular piece of paper. I blink again to make out the text through barely open eyes, slowly starting to make out what's written. Eggs, 2, bread loaf, whole grain cereal, time! That's part of a balanced breakfast. Shopping list? I look upwards, raising an eyebrow. I usually go shopping with Lily, but I can't come, so... You want me to run errands for you? It's okay if you don't want to, I just thought that maybe... She's panicking. I sigh. Yet another battle lost, though this time by a weakly fought surrender. I smile tiredly and rest a hand on her head to calm her down. It's fine. I'm just gonna go anyway. Just the stuff on the list? She nods, then bows deeply, twice as if to make her gratitude perfectly clear. We were going to meet outside the school gates at 6. Thank you. I was going to get it, but I need to study for the test tomorrow. Test? Oh, that's right, science. How you doing with it? She brightens ever so slightly. I've been spending more time on it than before. I think I can do okay. Good work, then. She, too, starts smiling, and much more earnestly than I at that. I have full confidence that I can do fine in it without any extra studying, but the fact that she's putting in the effort instead of just reading in the library is heartening. I'll grab your stuff and take it to your dorm in the evening. See ya. With a small wave, we part ways. I'll go do my homework before meeting Lily. I should be able to take care of it in time. Our second trip to the store, wrangling with a particularly complicated math problem, has caused me to be a little bit late for my meeting with Lily. Only a couple of minutes, but not enough to make me step smartly out into the courtyard and to the school gate. I make a right turn and start my way towards the small town before leaving a few students turning the other way to the bus station. I slip my right hand into my pocket as I walk in the orange sunlight of dusk. Thankfully, the sweltering summer heat started to die down, making way for a pleasant, cool breeze. When I stretch my hands high above my head, a familiar figure takes form, cane in her right hand. Ah, Lily! She stops and turns around, swiveling her head slightly to try and work out exactly where the voice came from. Hey, it's me. I quickly catch up to her, coming in beside her, matching her slow pace as we resume walking. Good afternoon, Hisao. Hi there. I glance up at the sky. A distinct tinge of orange discolors the clouds, washing the footpath in its light. Long shadows from the trees fall across the wide road down the hill. So, Hisao, what brings you here? Just going to town to grab some groceries. Hanako sent me. Hanako sent you? Yeah, she said she needed to study for a test tomorrow. I was gonna come down anyway, so I'll just buy her stuff as well. Unspoken is that Lily really could use some help to get food, but it's an obvious fact that neither of us needs to state. It's good to hear she's studying for it. I thought the same thing when she asked me to come with you. We continue walking down the street, the familiar sound of her cane echoing through the air as we go. Except for the occasional passing car and the leaves whispering in the branches, there's a blissful silence. Thank God I can finally relax for the first time today. I glance over at Lily. She mad pretty. That porcelain face of hers never seems to lack the air of relaxed confidence. I guess the same could be said of her personality, too. As she silently walks, her face remaining pointed to the street ahead of her, I look ahead and savor the cool air blowing over my face. This is probably the calmest moment I've had since the about-face my life took so recently. To have it while walking to get some groceries. What a weird life. I feel the crumpled up note rubbing against my hand in my pocket and pull it out to check its contents. Let's see. Eggs, bread, cereal, thyme, lettuce, shaved ham! That sounds like quite a bit to carry back with your own, along with your own. Yeah, just how much does this girl eat anyway? My mind suddenly clicks that yes, there actually is a person beside me. Wait, I mean, she laughs wholeheartedly. My, Hisao. Her giggle punctuating her words, though she makes little effort to suppress them. Quite direct today, aren't we? You got me there. Still, it is quite a bit. Usually I go shopping with Hanako, so I know what she buys. It's the same thing every week. Huh, she a good cook? She gives a nervous giggle. It's usually me who ends up cooking. I used to do so for Akira, so it's no problem doing it for Hanako as well. You can cook, but... A short hum with an amused lit emanates from beside me. I wonder if the fact that she seems amused by my comments so often is actually genuine, or rather just from a want to make me more comfortable in addressing her blindness. There are ways around it. Some meals are more difficult to cook than others because of being unable to see what I'm doing, but it usually only takes a little more time. Fingers can double as very useful measurement tools, for example. Makes sense, but she'd have to be pretty careful not to hurt herself. Wonder how many times that's happened, given that it sounds like she's cooked alone for possibly years while Akira worked and her parents were gone. With that, the conversation trails off. Compared to the awkward silences of Hanako, Lily seems genuinely content to say what she thinks and stay quiet when there's nothing to say. The slick road under my feet is bathed in an orange glow, the occasional fallen leaf crunching underfoot as we walk. I let out a deep yawn, my lack of sleep coming back to haunt me. Did you not get much sleep last night? I couldn't sleep at all for the last 2 nights. Probably insomnia. Lily's face suddenly becomes worried. Feels like a personal failure every time she gets worried about my well-being, even if it's genuinely nice to know someone cares. You have insomnia? Aren't you going to see the nurse about it? Nah, no real need. It happened before a few times. My meds screw with my sleeping occasionally. I'm sorry. Come on, it's not your fault. At least I shouldn't have any trouble I shouldn't have any trouble getting to sleep tonight. You do worry me sometimes. I worry you? I reach around and scratch the back of my neck. I kind of want to address this. Hey, Lily. I don't mean to sound weird, but please try to forget about my heart condition. She looks kind of lost. I hardly blame her. I guess what I'm trying to get at is just don't treat me differently because of it. She bows her head slightly, her white cheeks reddening almost imperceptibly. It's only natural to worry about those around you. Well, it's still nice to know there's someone like that out there. It may be somewhat embarrassing to say, but it's the truth. Lily takes a breath to regain her composure and manages a gentle smile, though her cheeks remain flushed. The final downhill walk to the store passes in silence. I'm bad at reading. Welcome. Suppose I'll get my stuff first, and Hanako's on the second round. I grab 2 well-worn red baskets from the stack beside the entrance and pass one to Lily. Just as she did before, she lays it on the ground and slides her retracted cane between the basket's handles before picking it back up with her right hand. When she takes hold of my arm and her own, I'm surprised at just how fast this kind of casual contact became so natural, mostly due to necessity, no doubt. Shall we? Sure. The correct answer is let's. Gotta follow the teachings of Macintosh, man. While we navigate around the store, the odd person occasionally passing us pays us no heed at all. It's nice compared to the stares and whispers around the city. As we reach each aisle, I quickly check with Lily what she needs and grabs it along with what I want, putting our items into their respective baskets. It's an odd feeling to be depended on so much for something so basic as shopping. Hanako would be practically a necessity for her to pick out what she wants, after all. And I'm pretty much done with both my stuff and Hanako's. You needing anything else, Lily? No, this should be everything. Off we go, then. Oddly, it's a Q, but I always call it a quay, because that's how it's spelled, a mile long. Considering the store is only large enough to warrant 1 counter, seems like it'll take a while. Damn. Lily gave an inquisitive look, unable to see the reason for my complaint. The queue's really long. Looks like we'll have to wait. How strange. Sharing the same mood of resignation, we reluctantly take our place at the end of the line. One person finishes, the line moves up. Another person finishes, the line moves up. By the time we finally reach the head of the line, I'm so close to dozing off that Lily has to gently pat me on my back for me to move up. How? Sorry. She gives a short sigh of concentration, or consternation? As I move up, getting the groceries for Hanako and me put into separate bags. Thank you, please come again. By the time we emerge from the store, Lily's holding a single bag while I struggle to carry 4, both hands well and truly full. It's a lot of work, but thankfully the items in them are light. That damn shaved ham! Even without looking skyward, it's obvious that a surprisingly amount of time has passed, the road outside being dark and lit by street lamps. Once Lily retrieves her cane, we set out back to the dormitories, the way we came, leaving the welcome warm glow of the store. Despite the road being empty of cars, the full bag abundantly makes up for the lack of noise, constantly clunking and squeaking together. My, Hisao. It's good to find that you're eating well. I'm a growing guy, after all. I need to eat all I can. Must be nice being a man. But what? Seemingly not noticing or ignoring my surprise at the completely out-of-left-field comment, she continues on without missing a beat. Weight doesn't really bother you when eating, most of the time. I get what you mean. Women tend to worry about that stuff like that more than we do, I guess. Exactly. Makes me somewhat envious, to be honest. Oh, that's just because societal expectations are put on women significantly more so. There are some for men, but it's less so about the physicality of it. Well, it's not like we can outright ignore it. With an affirmative nod, we continue on our walk. Not to say, being overweight doesn't have its foibles. You can still get mocked for it, obviously. I just feel like heavy-set men are much less likely to be, lambasted than a heavy-set woman. It's just not very fair that way. That's right. What is it? Hanako mentioned your birthday was earlier this year. Do anything special for it? She gives a long pause, lost in thought for a few seconds as she recalls the event. Not really. It was just Hanako and me having a little party during the night after school. Your birthday is supposed to be a big event, Sounds like a pretty lonely way to spend a birthday. Just her and Hanako staying overnight. Birthdays always felt like a family occasion for me. There was a time when, in spite of their full-time jobs, both my parents would make an effort to be there for the day, or at least for a party beforehand. It reminds me of how Lily mentioned she hadn't seen her family in such a long time, and even ended up moving away from Akira's house afterwards. But I guess it's the same in situations as mundane as these. Considering her inability to read the packaging, just getting groceries would be a pain without somebody else around. In the end, she just has Hanako and me and Akira when she's off from work. Be that as it may, she still seems to have many more distant friends among the students, not to mention people like Yuko. Seems to be her own choice that there's such a separation between those who are close to her and those who she only socializes with. It humbles me a little to see how much Lily seems to have her life set up and going just as she wants. Yet Hanako's there for her to celebrate her birthday, and I'm here helping her with shopping. It's a weird kind of symbiosis, I suppose. Are you alright, Hisao? Pardon? You just seem to go very quiet, that's all. Oh, sorry. I was just thinking. Oh. And now I've piqued her curiosity. Oh boy, hello. It feels kind of overly personal to talk about, though. Well, I mean, she seems to appreciate it when we were open with her about stuff, so I don't see any reason why we should do that, I'm mildly confused, but I don't know. It seems so obvious that it almost feels like it can't be the right answer, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I was thinking about how you seem to have everything so sorted out, even with Hanako relying on you. And I can admit that even I kind of relied on you when I first transferred in. I think it's a good quality to have. I turned to Lily, surveying her reaction. She's forcing herself to look forward and furrowing her brow quite a bit. Her face looks a bit awkward, as if she was trying to find the right words. Lily? I would thank you, but assuming that I don't rely on the presence of others is too much. You'd be wrong to think that Hanako simply depends on me with nothing in return. She seems to have a bit of trouble saying it, even though it's largely what I'd thought already. If she's tried so hard to maintain her independence as anyone would have to add to in her position, decided or not, maybe she finds it hard to talk about her own needs. It's only now that I realize an omission in what she says, though. And I decide to follow it up, largely in jest to avoid things getting too personal. Oh, and what about me? She suddenly runs ahead of me and turns, blocking me off. With a smile, she holds her hands behind her as she leans forward. You're different. And with that, she turns back and continues to walk ahead of me, a newfound spring in her step. Okay, well, I don't think I did anything wrong. All I can do is raise an eyebrow and give a dazed grin. I don't think I've ever seen this playful and teasing side of her before. So I'm different. Hard to work out the exact context, but knowing her, this ambiguity was intended. Our relationship has been changing, at the very least simply because I've begun to stand on my own feet more and started getting more curious about the situation of those around me. As to why, probably a mix of personal curiosity and a want to try and work out how to deal with my situation. I'm less sure of Lily, though. That's why her own statement, so similar to my own feelings towards her, throws me off so much. Yeah, I guess she's just different. Watching her make her way up the street, cane tapping from left to right, I decide to settle the matter later and just smile. This is a nice side to her, and I don't want to forget it. I mean, quite frankly, all of her sides are rather nice to look at. But boom! But I get what you meant. Eventually, we get to the girls' dormitory, both my arms aching from the weight of the shaved ham. We're finally here. Whew. I bend down to wipe my forehead with the back of my hand. Lily stops in front of her door and sets down her bag, fishing around in her pocket for the key. Thank you, Hisao. I really appreciate your help. This is nothing. It might be nothing to you, but it's definitely something for me. And with that, she steps through her door, closing it behind her. I blink. Those were nothing but honest thanks, but I can't help but feeling somewhat different about them. Anyway, I have something else to do before I can mull on that at my leisure. I turn back to the door to Hanako's room and proceed to knock twice in quick succession, the bag still in my hands rustling together. After a couple of seconds, the door slowly opens. If one weren't looking closely, they could be forgiven for thinking it hadn't moved at all. I twist my head to the side to try and peer through the tiny sliver of a gap between the door and the door frame. Hey, Hanako, I got your stuff. With that, she opens the door completely, making her plain room visible over her shoulder. Sparsely decorated. It's probably even more unremarkable than my room. I hold out my right arm, both bags almost pulling it straight back down with their weight. Thank you, Hisao. I'm sorry to make you carry them all this way. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry. Just don't make me do it every day, okay? I pass the bags to her as I give a lighthearted chuckle. After the initial transfer of weight, she manages to take them easily. I'll be off then. Night, Hanako. Good night. See you in class tomorrow. Nice girl. With a deep bow, her groceries still held in both hands, she steps back and shuts the door. Making my way back to my own dorm, I put one bag into my other hand to balance them out. Even as I do so, I can't get Lily's lighthearted smile out of my mind. When I'd first met her, it would have been nearly impossible to imagine her like that. Indeed, it feels like we've become closer in the past few weeks since I first got to know both her and Hanako. The time that I spend with her each day, the small exchanges of happiness we share, those small moments of joy as I get closer to her. I'm far from certain, but I don't think these are just the normal feelings of friendship. Once I return to my room, I store away my groceries and begin getting ready for the night. I swap the school books in my bag for those I'll need tomorrow, pulling out the yellow envelope Misha gave me earlier in the process. I got so sidetracked by one thing after another that I couldn't deal with it earlier. Who could have written me, I wonder? The name neatly adorning the back of the envelope freezes me in my tracks. It's been so long since I've seen her writing. There's little chance I could have identified it as hers otherwise. Oh, Hanako. Why should she have written me? I can't think of any good reason for her to do this. I almost don't open the letter, but there'd be little point to that. If I just left it alone, its mere existence would gnaw at me until I did something about it. One last time. Let's read it out. I look down at the piece of paper at my desk, its bright and summery decoration beaming happily at me. The letter is in pink, jarring badly with the yellow sunflower border of the card. The handwriting is neat, the characters having been written thoughtfully and with an unusual amount of care. I'd barely given the letter a second thought when it was given to me, but now I can't get its contents out of my mind. I'd like to say that I don't know why she used such an old-fashioned method of communication, considering a phone call or an email would be both much faster and easier. The answer feels obvious enough, given the context. A letter leaves a comfortable distance between the sender and the recipient. Unlike a phone, it isn't required that you engage in conversation, and unlike email, there's less expectation of immediate reply. Statements such as the third year seem to be very anxious about the final exam. Oh, we're breezing through it. about the final exams, and it's so weird to think we're already seniors, isn't it? Or just small talk. Small talk that could have been achieved by simply replying to any of the messages I'd sent her while in the hospital. The ending, though, is the true reason she sent this. The last couple of lines added almost as an afterthought. Wow, it's... Unlike all the other ones, we're not even actually reading the full thing. I wonder if we'll meet again. Perhaps it's for the best if we don't. It's a statement that should hurt. I've always heard breakups are nasty stuff, but it feels like this is simply a reaffirmation of what we both already knew instead. It's the preceding text, no more than small talk, that makes me feel most uneasy. I can't figure out why, no matter how long I sit here and look back at this bright and summery piece of paper. If you'd like to correspond with me, by all means write me back. It's painfully obvious this is not the type of letter to be replied to. In the end, this letter is no more than a simple abdication of responsibility. A final statement to reassure herself that our relationship is over. As such, I find I have little problem in scrunching the letter in an envelope into a ball and tossing it into the waste bin, ridding myself of its existence. I go to bed with mixed feelings, cheated out of a pleasant evening by this intruder from the past. Ironically, it takes a while before I can manage to sleep. Wow, that might be the most negative reaction he's had to that thing. It be what it be. I guess he already feels pretty happy and content as is, so I guess it makes sense in that regard. Still, though,